They called her the Ice Queen until he melted her with a smile. On the icy plains of the planet, Zephyra, beneath a lavender-tinged sky, silence shattered as a sudden explosion of light and sound tore through the air. A battered starship spiraled from the clouds, hull ablaze with fire and hope. It struck the frozen ground in a screeching skid, plowing a wide, steaming trench before grinding to a halt mere paces from the foot of a towering citadel, a cathedral of shimmering crystal and alloy, refracting the weak sunlight in trembling shards of color. From the wreckage, a figure staggered, bent against the biting wind. Jace emerged, teeth gritted, clutching a gash on his brow. His coat, weathered and silver-trimmed, snapped around him, but he drew it tighter, scanning the landscape with sharp hazel eyes. Steam billowed from the ruined ship, mingling with the fog of his breath as he surveyed the damage, mind already cataloging what could be salvaged. He wiped the blood from his eyebrow with the back of his glove, then froze, his gaze snagged by the Citadel's great flickering barrier. A faint stutter in the energy field, invisible to most, leapt out at him like a beacon. High above, Princess Lyrae stood on her balcony, a living jewel against the icy wind. Her blue skin glistened in the cold light, vibrant pink hair coiled in an intricate crown. She leaned forward, golden eyes fixed on the figure below, curiosity bright in their depths. Behind her, the chief sentinel, a massive silhouette adorned with indigo markings, hovered protectively. "Should I intercept, Your Highness?" the sentinel rumbled, voice echoing off the crystal walls. "Not yet," Lyrae replied, her tone both regal and intrigued. "Let us see what he does first." Jace wasted no time. He strode to the hull, pried open a ruptured panel, and began pulling out scorched wiring and circuit boards, hands moving with practiced speed. His coat fell away, revealing a wiry strength beneath stained layers of utility cloth. He crouched by the shield generator's control node at the Citadel's base, laying out his scavenged treasures in the snow. Lyrae watched, breath catching as she took in his focus, the way his brow furrowed, the way his lips pursed as he worked. Utterly absorbed. "Resourceful?" she murmured, more to herself than to her sentinel. He moved quickly, improvising connectors from starship debris and rerouting power with deft, sure hands. Soon the shield's flicker faded to a steady hum, the barrier stabilizing before Lyrae's eyes. From below, Jace looked up, his hazel eyes warm, catching the glint of her golden gaze across the distance. For a heartbeat, the world fell away. Lyrae's breath hitched. A lopsided grin tugged at Jace's lips, as if he could sense her scrutiny. That smile lingered in her mind long after he turned away, retrieving his coat and heading for the generator access. Later, drawn by an irresistible mix of duty and curiosity, Lyrae swept down the grand stairways to the generator room. Frost clung to the high arched windows. The air hummed with energy. She entered with head high, every inch a princess, yet her gaze sought Jace immediately. He was crouched over an exposed panel, sleeves rolled up, hands stained with grease. He rose as she entered, offering a respectful nod. "Princess Lyrae, I presume." "You presume correctly," she replied, trying to sound imperious, but her eyes lingered on the deftness of his hands. "I see you have opinions on our technology." He offered an apologetic smile, brushing a lock of hair from his forehead. "Your barrier generator is brilliant, but the phase coils are arranged in a loop that's, well, a little inefficient. May I?" She crossed her arms, lips pursed. "Show me." Jace stepped closer, picking up a fragment of alloy and using it to sketch a quick schematic in the frost on a tabletop. "If you reroute the current through this channel here, you can stabilize the output with half the energy draw. Less risk of overload during a storm." Lyrae examined the diagram, bristling at his critique but unable to deny the simple logic. "You make it sound Obvious. He chuckled, voice low and warm. Sometimes a fresh pair of eyes helps. May I? He gestured toward the glowing conduit. She nodded, and together they approached the core. Jace guided her slender hand to the conduit, their fingers brushing. A jolt of energy passed between them, electric, undeniable. For a suspended moment, the chamber and its machinery faded to insignificance. All that existed was the charge in that accidental touch. Lyray's cheeks flushed a deeper blue. She glanced up, met his gaze, found warmth, openness, and a hint of mischief. The sentinel coughed loudly from the doorway, shattering the moment. Lyrae reclaimed her composure in a heartbeat. "You'll have quarters in the north wing," she announced, voice steady but eyes lingering on his face. "Overlooking the auroras. My staff will see to your needs." Jace bowed slightly. "Thank you, Princess." She swept from the room, but as she ascended the stairway, her fingers unconsciously traced the spot where his hand had met hers. Her thoughts circled back, again and again, to the spark between them. And she wondered, with a thrill she dared not show, what other surprises this human might bring. At sunrise, alarms shattered the fragile calm of the citadel. Crimson strobes flared through crystalline corridors, accompanied by a rising wail that sent staff and sentinels rushing from their chambers. Lyrae, already awake and fastening the last segment of silver-violet armor over her lithe frame, bolted from her quarters before her attendants could finish the protocol. Her boots rang against the crystal floors as she sprinted, heart pounding, not with fear, but with the cold clarity of command. "Status!" she barked, striding into the control chamber. The air crackled with tension. Holographic screens flickered with threat indicators, and the room was awash with the lavender dawn, fractured by the citadel's multifaceted walls. "Breach detected near the generator room," shouted one of her officers, voice tight. "Sensors show multiple life forms. Unknown tech." "Show me," Lyrae demanded, and the nearest sentinel spun the display. A cluster of red icons pulsed at the base of the North Tower, dangerously close to the generator heart. Murmurs swelled around her, muttering suspicion. "The outsider arrived yesterday," someone hissed. "Coincidence?" another questioned. Lyrae straightened, voice icy. "Contain your suspicions. No one moves against my order." The doors hissed open, and Jace strode in, unarmed but calm, his coat flaring behind him. His hazel gaze flicked across the tense faces, sentinels, staff, even the chief sentinel standing rigid at Lyrae's side. "I heard the alarms," he said, voice level. "What's happened?" The chief sentinel glowered. "You tell us, human. A breach. Your arrival? Your repairs?" Lyrae silenced him with a look, then turned to Jace. "We have intruders at the generator. What do you know of this?" Jace's brow furrowed. "Let me see your scans." He stepped to the holodisplay, hands moving with confidence as he expanded sensor readings, filtering through static and interference. He pointed to an anomaly in the data. "That's not an overload. Look, these pulses. They're using resonance disruptors. Targeted to exploit the shield's harmonic weaknesses." "Resonance disruptors?" Lyrae repeated, golden eyes narrowing. "You're certain?" "As certain as I can be. But your generator is holding. My repairs didn't fail. The breach is from outside." He met her gaze, earnest and unwavering. "You have to trust me." A tremor rocked the chamber. Light shattered from the crystal ceiling. Dust rained down as the floor shook, and a deep, thunderous boom rolled through the walls. Sirens rose, panicked. "Get down!" Jace shouted, lunging for Lyrae. He caught her by the waist and pulled her beneath the command dais just as a slab of alloy crashed where she'd stood. The impact sent a storm of crystal shards and debris slicing through the air. "Stay close!" He yelled over the chaos, helping her up as the assault continued. Shouts and flashes of weapons fire echoed through the corridors. Lirai drew her blade, a curved arc of violet light. "To the generator!" she ordered, and the two sprinted from the chamber, weaving through pandemonium. They dashed down spiraling stairs, skidding through smoke-filled halls. The wounded slumped against the walls, medics crouched over them, shouts for supplies and backup rising above the din. Bursts of light, blaster fire from unseen attackers, rippled through the crystalline haze. A young sentinel leapt before them, eyes wide. "Princess, the attackers!" "Hold them off!" Lyrae commanded, pressing forward, Jace at her heels. They burst into the generator chamber, now a battlefield. The air shimmered with charged particles, arcs of blue and white snapping between shattered conduits. 3 shadowy figures in camouflaged suits ducked behind consoles, weapons raised. Lyrae parried a shot with her blade, energy singing down its edge. Jace darted for the generator's core, ignoring the chaos. "Cover me," he called, voice edged with urgency. Lyrae nodded, stepping between him and the attackers. She deflected fire, moving with balletic precision, her blade carving lines of violet through the smoky air. Jace slid beneath a sparking conduit, hands flying across panels. "They've rerouted the disruptor frequency. If I can retune the core, I can force their feedback loop." Sweat traced a line through the soot on his cheek. "Just a minute." "You have 30 seconds," Lyrae shouted, deflecting another blast. Her armor flashed with every strike. Jace yanked a scorched cable, splicing it with a salvaged part from his belt. The generator's pulse grew unstable, a violent pounding heartbeat. The attackers surged forward, desperate to stop him. Lyrae spun, blade catching 2 at once, the third ducking away. "Hurry!" she urged, the edge of fear in her tone. "I need you," Jace called. "The core's alignment. Help me hold it." She darted to his side. Together, they gripped the glowing conduit, aligning it as a wild arc of energy surged. Electricity snapped between their hands, searing the air with heat and light. Suddenly, the generator pulsed, an explosion of white radiance throwing both of them backward. Time slowed as they tumbled through the charged air, landing in a tangled heap amid the ruined cables. Limbs entwined, their faces hung inches apart, breath mingling, warm, ragged, alive. Lyrae's golden eyes widened, pupils dilating as she stared into Jace's hazel gaze. Her lips parted, words lost in the closeness. Jace's hand still cradled her waist, his thumb brushing her armor in a silent promise. For a heartbeat, nothing existed beyond the space between them. The alarms faded, the battle sounds muted. There was only the thrum of their racing hearts and the crackle of fading energy. Lyrae felt the heat of his breath, saw the worry etched in his features. "Are you hurt?" he murmured, voice rough with concern. She shook her head, barely breathing. "No. You?" "Not if you're not," he replied, the lopsided smile returning for a fleeting second. The generator stabilized behind them, its steady hum a promise of safety. Outside, the remaining attackers fled as the shield reasserted its dominance, a wall of shimmering force that now held strong. Only then did Lyrae realize she was still in Jace's arms. For a moment, she let herself linger, unwilling to break the fragile connection. Her hand found his, fingers curling just slightly. Duty returned in a surge, sharp as a blade. She pulled away, rising to her feet, face flushed a deeper blue. Jace stood as well, brushing dust from his coat. "Thank you," she said softly. "You saved more than just the generator." He looked at her, gaze softening. "We did it together." Their eyes met, silent promises passing between them. Around them, sentinels secured the room, medics rushed to the wounded, the citadel finding order after chaos. But Lyrae felt the change inside herself, a bond forged in crisis, deeper than suspicion or protocol. As they parted to resume their duties, the connection lingered in every glance. Neither said what was in their hearts, but both knew. Something vital had been kindled in the fire and frost, something that would not so easily fade. The next day brought grim news. Liray stood in the war room as reports crackled through the air, her jaw clenched tight. The faces around her were grim, shadows etched deep by the lavender morning light. At the center of the display, a name pulsed like a wound. Commander Cairn, her uncle, the one who had vanished in disgrace, now resurfaced as the hand behind both the attack on the Citadel and the crash that had brought Jace to Zephyra's frozen plains. "It was Cairn's doing, Your Highness," her chief sentinel said, voice heavy. "He orchestrated the sabotage and the assault." Liray turned away, golden eyes burning. She barely heard the rest, the details of intercepted transmissions, the trace of resonance signatures unique to Cairn's exiled faction. The betrayal twisted inside her, bitter and raw. She had trusted Jace, let him in. But now? Was he another of Cairn's pawns? She left the chamber in silence, striding through the crystalline corridors to the armory, the ache in her chest tightening with every step. The doors slid open, and there was Jace, alone, his silhouette outlined against racks of weapons and gleaming shields. He glanced up, surprise flickering in his hazel eyes as she entered, armor glinting and face set in icy resolve. "Liray?" he said carefully. "What's happened?" She didn't answer at first. Instead, she studied him, searching, measuring. "News came this morning. My uncle orchestrated the attack. And your crash." Her voice trembled with accusation and pain. "How do I know you're not working for him?" The words hung between them like a blade. Jace's shoulders stiffened, wounded by her doubt. He stepped forward, hands open, voice rough with urgency. "Liray, I would never—" She cut him off, eyes bright with tears she refused to shed. "I want to believe you, Jace. But I don't know what's real anymore." He drew a shaky breath. "Your uncle. He's hunted me for years. I escaped his network on Karthus. That crash? It wasn't fate. He shot me down. I've been running from him. Not toward him." He let the words spill out, desperate, raw. "I never wanted to bring danger to your door." Liray's gaze searched his. Gold meeting hazel, hope and suspicion tangled in the air. She whispered, "If you're lying, if you betray me—" "I'm not," Jace said softly, stepping closer. "You have to trust me." "I swear to you, Liray, I have nothing to do with Cairn. I'm here because of you, because I want to be." Her guard trembled, then faltered. She let out a shaky breath, shoulders sagging. "Why does it feel so easy with you? Why does it terrify me?" He brushed a loose strand of pink hair from her cheek, fingers trembling. Sometimes you just know." She hesitated, then let herself fall, into hope, into him. Their first kiss was hesitant and hungry, all the things unsaid burning in the space between their lips. Jace's hands framed her face, gentle but sure, and Liray melted, the walls around her heart dissolving in the warmth of his embrace. A throat cleared, a pointed interruption. The chief sentinel stood in the doorway, eyes carefully averted. "Your Highness, Cairn approaches, under a banner of truce." Liray tore herself away, breathless, eyes wide with the ache of what might be lost. She turned to Jace, voice low and fierce. "If you betray me, if any of this is a lie, it will destroy me." Jace cupped her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. "I give you my word, Liray. I'm yours. No matter what comes." She stared at him, searching for any hint of falsehood, and found none. With a shaky nod, she chose belief, risking her heart in a way she never had before. That night, The citadel settled into uneasy calm. In Liray's private chamber, the fire crackled low, casting shifting patterns of gold across the walls. She sat curled in a deep chair, shoulders bare, hair cascading in a pink waterfall, eyes lost in the dancing flames. Jace entered quietly, settling beside her, silence stretching between them, a fragile bridge across the gulf of the day's betrayals. After a long moment, Liray spoke, her voice softer than the snow falling beyond the window. "Do you know why Cairn hates us? Why he can't let go of vengeance?" Jace shook his head. "No one speaks of your past. Not even the records I've found." She nodded, lips pressed tight. "We were visionaries once. My people. Dreamers, builders, healers. We reached too far. We created a force meant to end suffering, but it devoured everything instead. Zephyra was nearly lost. My ancestors exiled themselves to atone, to never again unleash such devastation. Cairn. He cannot forgive the past. He wants retribution, not reconciliation." Jace listened, his hand finding hers. She trembled, and he tightened his grip, anchoring her. "I want peace," she whispered. "I want my people to heal, to be more than the sum of their mistakes. But Cairn, he'd see us burned for redemption." Jace kneeled beside her chair, lifting her hands to his lips. "You're not your ancestors, Liray. You're more than their shadows." She looked down at him, tears glinting in the firelight. "And you? What do you want?" He met her gaze, steady and true. "I want to stand with you, to help you build something new, even if it means facing Cairn. Even if it means—" He faltered, then continued, voice low. "Even if it means giving you my heart, without knowing if I'll get it back." Liray reached for him, pulling him up, her arms winding around his neck. They held each other, all the world's sorrow and hope pressed between their bodies. The fire warmed their skin, casting them in molten gold. "I'm afraid," she admitted. "Afraid of failing my people. Afraid of losing you." "I am too," Jace murmured, brushing his lips across her brow. "But maybe together, we can be brave." She smiled through her tears, a broken, radiant thing. "Stay with me tonight. Just stay." He nodded, drawing her into his lap. Their foreheads touched, breaths mingling. Jace's hands enveloped hers, grounding her, and she rested against his chest, listening to the steady drum of his heart. A sound more comforting than any promise. In the hush of the chamber, Liray shared stories of the old world, of Zephyra's lost beauty, of a time before guilt and exile. Jace answered with tales of his own wandering, his longing for belonging. Their fears and hopes braided together in the firelight, forging a bond stronger than any oath. When words ran out, they sat in silence, the universe shrinking to the circle of fire and the warmth of each other's arms. Finally, Jace kissed her again, slow and reverent, as if sealing a vow neither dared speak aloud. That night, by the flicker of flames and the quiet hush of falling snow, they found solace in each other, a union of trust and longing, two souls daring to bridge the divide between worlds. Preparations for Cairn's return transformed the citadel. The once tranquil halls rang with the clang of weapons, the hum of shield calibrations, and the hurried instructions of Liray's sentinels. Crystal banners and shimmering alloy panels reinforced every entrance, while Jace's innovations rewired ancient defenses, lending them fresh, unpredictable power. In a quiet training chamber, tucked beneath the northern tower, Liray and Jace faced each other, breath visible in the chill air. Liray moved first, a blur of grace, blade singing as it carved arcs of violet light. Jace countered with practical precision, feet steady, movements adaptive, turning a dropped weapon into a shield, a loose gauntlet into a distraction. She lunged, and he sidestepped, grinning. "You're getting predictable, princess." She smirked, launching a swift kick that nearly caught his shin. "You're getting cocky, outsider." They circled, laughter bubbling up even as sweat beaded on their brows. When she fainted, he caught her wrist, spinning her so their bodies aligned, close enough that she could feel his heartbeat through his tunic. Their eyes locked, and for a moment the world narrowed to the charged space between them. "Again?" he asked, voice soft, teasing. "Always," she replied, but her hand lingered on his chest before she pulled away. Their partnership deepened with every bout, each touch lingering, every smile easing the tension that knotted their nerves. They learned to anticipate one another, Liray's swift, fluid style blending with Jace's improvisational tactics. Between sparring, they whispered encouragements, gentle hands brushing away stray strands of hair or helping each other up from the mat. One evening, Liray collapsed beside him on the floor, laughter breathless. "When this is over, you'll have to teach my sentinels that trick with the magnetic bracer." Jace smiled, brushing a kiss over her knuckles. "Only if you promise to teach me how you do that spin kick without falling on your face." She laughed, the sound echoing off the crystal walls, and for a moment, the war outside seemed impossibly distant. The days blurred into nights, and tension mounted as the hour of Cairn's arrival approached. The chief sentinel entered the chamber one morning, voice resonant. "He's here." Cairn approaches the main gates. Liray and Jace exchanged a glance, equal parts apprehension and resolve. Side by side, they made their way to the grand hall, every eye in the citadel tracking their progress. Liray's armor gleamed violet and silver. Jace's coat was patched and battle-worn, but his stance was proud, protective. The great doors swung open with a groan. Commander Cairn strode in, flanked by his own guards, tall, imposing, his presence filling the room with cold menace. His eyes swept the hall, lingering on the closeness between Liray and Jace. "Well, niece, I see you've found solace in the arms of an outsider," Cairn taunted, lips curled in a sly smirk. "How touching." Liray stood tall, unflinching. "This is my home, Cairn. You are not welcome here." He chuckled, gaze flicking to Jace. "And you, human, what do you hope to gain from this alliance? Power? A place among us, when the dust settles?" Jace met his stare without wavering. "All I want is to see Liray's people safe, and to see you gone." Murmurs rippled through the gathered crowd, surprise and approval mingling. Liray felt a thrill at Jace's devotion, his willingness to stand with her in front of all her people. For the first time, she sensed a shift, acceptance blooming in the faces around her, suspicion giving way to hope. Cairn sneered, turning away. "We shall see, niece. Dawn brings your reckoning." The night before battle, Liray and Jace walked the battlements together. She squeezed his hand, voice barely above a whisper. "Promise me you'll be careful." He stopped, pulling her close. "Not without you by my side." The sky blushed lavender and rose as dawn approached. War horns sounded, echoing across the frozen plain. The citadel shuddered as Cairn's forces advanced. Liray commanded from the spire, her voice ringing out over the comms. "Hold the line. Activate the shield arrays on my mark." She watched as Jace moved among the defenders below, recalibrating turrets and boosting the shields with jury-rigged amplifiers. He relayed orders, calm under fire. "Adjust your fire to the east flank. Cycle the disruptor coils, now." Cairn's army crashed against the citadel's shields, waves of soldiers, siege mechs, and disruptor cannons. Liray's strategies held, her people fighting with newfound unity, emboldened by her command and Jace's ingenuity. But the battle raged hotter, the walls trembling beneath the onslaught. Suddenly, a breach erupted on the western gate. Liray's heart clenched as she saw Jace thrown from an explosion, rolling to his feet amid chaos. She could not bear it. Leaving her post, she raced down spiral stairs, weaving through smoke and flame until she found him at the breach. He was battered, blood on his brow, but his eyes found hers, blazing with relief. "You shouldn't be here," he gasped, but there was no anger, only gratitude. "I can't command from a tower while you fight alone," she replied, drawing her blade. "Let's finish this together." Back to back, they fought in seamless harmony. Liray's blade swept wide, Jace's makeshift blaster firing in concert. When she stumbled, he steadied her. When he was cornered, she cut a path to his side. Their movements became a dance, a unity of trust, resolve, and something deeper. Cairn himself stormed the breach, energy blade arcing toward Liray. She parried, gritting her teeth as sparks exploded. Jace hurled a flash charge, buying her an instant. Together, they pressed the attack, Liray's fluid strikes merging with Jace's unpredictable counters. The tide turned. Cairn, wounded and snarling, was forced to retreat, his army crumbling behind him. Silence descended, broken only by the ragged breaths of the victors. The citadel stood battered but unbroken. Liray's people cheered, voices rising in gratitude and awe. Exhausted, armor cracked and hair wild, Liray searched the crowd for Jace. He limped toward her, bloodied but smiling, and she ran to him. They collided in a fierce embrace, arms tight, hearts pounding in unison. She pulled him down for a kiss, hungry, triumphant, full of everything they had fought for. The hall erupted in applause as her people bore witness, the kiss a declaration. Liray's heart was no longer walled off, and Jace was no longer an outsider. When they parted, breathless and smiling, Liray rested her forehead against his. Around them, her people celebrated not just victory, but the unity born of trust and courage. For the first time, Jace was greeted not with suspicion, but with cheers. Welcomed into the heart of Zephyra, not as a stranger, but as one of their own. Victory was shadowed by treachery. The echoes of celebration had barely faded from the Citadel's halls when the alarm klaxon sounded once more, urgent and shrill. Liray, still in her battered armor, hurried to the command post, Jace close at her side. A scout burst into the chamber breathless, her face stricken with dread. "Your Highness! Jace! The chief engineer, he's the traitor. We found his signal logs. He's been in contact with Cairn all along." The revelation hit harder than any blow. Liray's eyes widened, her jaw set in disbelief. Jace's fists clenched, memories of the engineer's subtle evasions flashing through his mind. "Where is he now?" Jace demanded. "In the engine bay. He's initiated some kind of sequence." Jace didn't wait for more. He dashed from the chamber, boots pounding down the crystalline corridors, Liray following. The air thrummed with danger, the energy in the walls wrong. As they neared the engine bay, a tremor rocked the floor, a warning of disaster. Inside, the chief engineer stood at the control panel, hands flying over keys, eyes wild with the certainty of his own doom. "You should have left things as they were, outsider," he spat, voice brittle. "This world belongs to the blood of Zephyra, not to you." Jace advanced, rage and betrayal burning in his eyes. "You're going to kill everyone in this citadel. Your own people. For what? Cairn's promises?" The engineer laughed, voice cracking. "He offered me a place in the new order. You and the princess, traitors to your blood. It ends now." He slammed his palm onto the sequence pad. Sirens screamed, and the display lit up. Catastrophic core breach initiated. Containment protocols locked down, but the countdown had begun. A sickly red glow pulsed from the reactor core beyond the bulkhead. "Jace!" Liray called, fear sharpening her voice. The engineer dashed for the escape hatch, but Jace tackled him, pinning him against the cold alloy deck. How do we stop it? He snarled. The traitor sneered. You can't. Not without dying for it. Jace's fist met the engineer's jaw, hard and final. That's not your choice, he hissed, then turned to Liray, urgency blazing in his voice. We have seconds. The core's going critical. Liray's breath trembled, but she nodded, resolve hardening. We do it together. Side by side, they raced through the trembling engine corridors. Red lights bathed their faces, the heat and radiation growing with every step. The warning klaxons rose to a frantic, ear-splitting pitch. Jace paused at the final bulkhead, hand on the override. Liray caught his arm, eyes shining gold with a mixture of terror and love. Jace! He drew her close, pressing his lips to hers in a desperate, searing kiss. The world shrank to the heat of their bodies, the promise in the pressure of their lips. It was wordless, an oath, a plea, a vow to return. Ready? He whispered, forehead pressed to hers. Always, she breathed. He punched the override. The door slid open, a wave of radiation-laced heat slamming into them. They staggered into the core chamber, skin prickling, breaths burning. Inside, the reactor's heart throbbed, spewing tendrils of wild energy. Jace's eyes darted over the panels, mind racing. Main stabilizer, there, he shouted. I'll reroute the flow. You hold the coolant valves. Liray nodded, already moving. Sparks rained down as she forced the manual levers into place, fingers numb and raw. Jace dove to the central console, ripping out a panel and hot-wiring the core regulator. Faster, Jace, Liray called, voice ragged. He gritted his teeth, pain flaring through his hands as radiation scorched his skin. Almost. Got it. Circuits fused under his touch, the control rods shuddering back into alignment. The core's howl shifted, becoming a desperate whine. Liray braced herself against the control arm, muscles straining. Now, Jace, the override. Together, they slammed the emergency reset. For a heartbeat, everything went white, energy surging, the chamber roaring as if the citadel itself might split apart. Then, silence. The lights steadied, the core's wild pulse subsiding to a steady thrum. Jace staggered, knees buckling. Liray caught him, arms trembling as relief and exhaustion crashed over her. They collapsed together, backs against the cool alloy. Jace's breathing was ragged, his hands blistered, but he managed a lopsided grin. Not exactly the romantic adventure I had in mind. Liray laughed weakly, clutching his hand. You're alive. We're alive. The chamber doors burst open. Sentinels and medics flooded in, expressions shifting from terror to gratitude. They lifted Jace and Liray gently, voices murmuring awe and thanks. The medic pressed a scanner to Jace's chest, frowning. Radiation exposure is high. You both need treatment immediately, she warned, eyes sharp. Liray shook her head, defiant. I'm not leaving him. The medic hesitated, then nodded, seeing the resolve in Liray's golden gaze. Together, Jace and Liray were helped from the chamber, the cheers of the people echoing through the halls. For the first time, faces turned to Jace not with suspicion, but with open gratitude, shoulders bowed in respect, voices offering thanks. News rippled through the citadel. Cairn's forces were retreating. The sabotage had failed. The shield held. Hope blossomed where fear had ruled. Later, by the warmth of the hearth in Liray's private chamber, Jace lay wrapped in a blanket, skin still pale, but his eyes bright with life. Liray curled beside him, fingers tracing lazy patterns over his hand, the firelight painted gold across their bruises, their wounds a testament to all they had risked and saved. Jace looked up, voice soft. You know, when I crashed on Zephyra, I never imagined any of this. Not the danger, not the feeling of belonging. Liray smiled, her expression tinged with wonder. You changed us, Jace. My people used to fear outsiders, used to fear hope. Now they look to the stars and see possibility instead of threat. He shifted, drawing her closer. You led them there. I just followed your light. She leaned in, lips brushing his. You brought your own light, Jace. Enough for all of us. They sat together, watching the fire, sharing quiet laughter and dreams. Through the window, the auroras danced above a citadel no longer isolated but united, her people no longer afraid, but reaching toward the future, with Jace at Lyray's side. 3 months later, the citadel was reborn. Where once icy winds howled through empty corridors, now warmth and laughter spilled from every archway. Human and Zephyrian engineers worked side by side, voices raised in good-natured debate as they tinkered with new inventions: hoverlifts, crystal-powered lanterns, and intricate communication webs that pulsed with the promise of connection. The hallways, once stark and cold, gleamed with iridescent banners and clusters of children darting between benches, their laughter ringing like bells. Lyrae stood on the main terrace, no longer burdened by armor or the shadow of exile. She wore a flowing gown of Zephyrian silk, the deep violet fabric shot through with silver threads. Her pink hair tumbled loose around her shoulders, and her golden eyes sparkled as she watched her people moving through the transformed courtyard below. A gentle hand slipped around her waist. Jace joined her, dressed in Zephyrian attire, close-fitting tunic and tailored boots, the deep blue and silver setting off his warm hazel eyes. He looked every bit at home, and the playful smile he wore had only grown since that first, battered day on Zephyra. Careful, he teased, brushing his lips against her temple. You're starting to look far too regal for your own good. She laughed, resting her head on his shoulder. You think so? I was aiming for approachable, maybe even a little mysterious. Jace pretended to consider, tracing idle patterns along her arm. You're definitely mysterious. Approachable? Maybe to those brave enough to face a princess on the edge of a new era. Lyrae nudged him, grinning. And what about those who crash land in the middle of my life and refuse to leave? He caught her hand, their fingers interlacing. Those are the luckiest of all. The terrace doors opened and the chief sentinel, now more friend than guardian, strode out. His once intimidating stance had softened, the indigo markings on his arms now accented by a sash of woven silver. He inclined his head to Lyrae, then clapped Jace on the shoulder. I bring news, he announced, barely suppressing a smile. The Interstellar Council's envoys will arrive within days. They wish to witness this transformation firsthand. Lyrae's eyes widened. So soon? Do you think we're ready? The sentinel nodded. If the council seeks proof of progress, let them see our unity. Human and Zephyrian working as one. Jace grinned. We'll dazzle them, or at least confuse them with all the new tech. The doors swung wider and a young woman hurried onto the terrace, clutching a holo tablet to her chest. She was the new chief engineer, not more than 20, with a mane of turquoise hair and eyes as bright as the auroras. She bowed to Lyrae, then beamed. Your Highness, the outer sector upgrades are complete, and with the Council's approval, we can begin expansion to the southern ridge. The energy grid is stable, and... She glanced at Jace, her enthusiasm infectious. We've integrated the human thermal converters. No more power outages, even during the worst storms. Lyrae's smile was radiant. Brilliant work. Thank you. Please, share the plans at the council meeting tonight. As the engineer dashed off, the sentinel leaned in, voice low. There's hope in the air again. I never thought I'd see it. Jace squeezed Lyrae's hand. Hope is hard to kill. You just have to give it a chance. The rest of the day passed in a blur of preparations. Banners were raised, lanterns lit, and food from every Zephyrian province filled the halls. Children rehearsed songs in both languages, and adults set aside old rivalries to practice the gestures of interstellar welcome. For the first time in generations, the Citadel buzzed with optimism, a future imagined rather than feared. That evening, as dusk painted the sky in lavender and rose, the great hall brimmed with anticipation. Lyrae, radiant beneath the glowing crystal dome, stood before her people, the entire community gathered in a sea of color and light. She raised her hands, silencing the crowd with ease. 3 months ago, we stood divided, afraid, of change, of one another, of a future we could not trust. Her voice was steady, warm, filled with pride. Tonight, the Interstellar Council has sent word. Our exile will be lifted, not all at once, but in stages, so long as we continue to walk this path together. The hall erupted in cheers, voices mingling in a chorus of hope. Lyrae smiled, waiting for quiet. This victory is not mine alone. It belongs to all who chose unity over division, who reached out instead of hiding away. It belongs to the sentinels who protected us, the engineers who built bridges instead of walls, the children who dared to dream of a different world. She turned, finding Jace at the edge of the crowd, his eyes shining. She beckoned him forward, her voice resonant. And it belongs to those who chose love over fear. Jace's breath caught as Lyrae reached for his hand, drawing him to her side before the gathered assembly. Jace, you came to us as an outsider. You gave us hope, even when we could not give it to ourselves. In gratitude and in faith, I name you ambassador to the council. Will you accept? Jace blinked, overcome. Lyrae, I would be honored. More than you know. A wave of applause crashed over them, her people's faces open and joyful, no longer closed by suspicion. Lyrae squeezed his hand, her smile trembling with emotion. Then let this night mark a new beginning, she declared. For Zephyra, for all who would join us, and for the love that now guides our future. As festivities spilled into the night, dancing, music, the sharing of old stories and new, Jace and Lyrae slipped away to the quiet edge of the gardens. They stood together beneath the stars, the citadel glowing behind them, laughter and song drifting on the wind. Jace pulled Lyrae close, his voice a gentle murmur. Can you believe this? 3 months ago, I barely knew if I would survive the night. Now I can't imagine leaving. She rested her cheek against his chest, the steady beat of his heart grounding her. You melted the cold around me, Jace, around all of us. He tipped her chin up, brushing her lips with his. What do you dream of now? She smiled, hopeful and unafraid. A world where every exile finds home, where love bridges every divide. Jace grinned. That sounds like a story for the stars. She laughed, threading her fingers through his. Let's write it together. And as the auroras shimmered overhead and the citadel echoed with celebration, their bond shone brighter than ever. A beacon of unity, a legend in the making, their love guiding Zephyra and all its people toward a future as radiant as the sky itself. That's the end of the story. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and write in the comments what you liked most about this story. Our team will be very grateful to you. You can find even more fascinating stories on our channel. See you in the next video.